the Turkish shell fire was so terrific that the lines used to get busted up with bursting shells. Then the only communication was that's where the word runner was born. I was a runner.
Under the cover of dawn, men stormed the beachheads of Gallipoli, while others silently fell at their feet. Uncertain of their fates, they trudged through the coves and waters as fast as they could, dodging machine gun and mortar fire from Turks encamped up above. They shot blindly into the night, yet this is what they were here for. One job, one purpose, and that was to knock the Ottomans out of the war by taking the Gallipoli Peninsula. The Allies wanted to end this brutal war now, and they had a plan. A campaign forgotten by most, yet so crucial in deciding the fate of World War I. This was the Gallipoli campaign of 1915 through 16.
The failure of the Gallipoli campaign in 1915 to 1916 in the First World War led to the tragedy of the fall of the Tsarist Russian government and political turmoil, which led to the upbringing of communism in Russia. However, the triumph was that the battle led to inspiring Anzac propaganda, which increased morale and enlistment of Australians and others affected.
As the stalemate continued on the Western Front, British authorities had decided to form a campaign that would be capable of knocking the Ottoman Empire out of the war and open a new front to divert ever-growing German forces and advances. It would also be a way to open the Dardanelles Strait, which acts as a key shipping route to Russia, in which the British had shipped war supplies vital to the dwindling Russian army. Russia was in dire need as they were in complete turmoil, and without these supplies they fell into a catastrophic state. For lack of better terms, a successful attack against the Ottoman Empire might drive Turkey from the war and open a supply lane to Russia. In addition, an Allied victory might draw German troops to the east, something they wanted. French leaders, who wanted the major effort on the Western Front, nonetheless went along. The plan was to be initiated with the force of French, British, Anzac, and Indian Commonwealth troops. The assault would begin with a naval bombardment, which was the primary tactic. The campaign had begun officially on February 19th with a continued naval assault of the Ottoman-held Dardanelles Strait. It was called off until February 24th due to weather concerns, and it began once again on February 25th. As it resumed, it proved to be highly successful as the German and Turkish troops had withdrawn from their positions. The attacks after had failed miserably and were tried once again, yet were repulsed in a much violenter manner, and Admiral Sir John de Roebuck called off the naval assault. Now land forces invaded, beginning with the French portion of Allied troops who had landed first at Cape Helles on April 25th. They led the way in the initial invasion and had served as a distraction force to Turkish troops to reinforce the initial forces at the beachhead. At dawn, Anzac forces were set to spearhead the assault as they were instructed to land north of Gabba-Tepe on the Aegean coast, but soon off course had landed several miles north at Sari Bear Ridge. They were to cut off the Turkish reinforcements to allow the French and British to advance unopposed. The Anzacs were faced with the grim task of taking the Sari Bear Ridge. As they were advanced up the steep and rocky cliffs, they were mowed down by rapid machine gun fire, and soon the men were dispersed into small groups as they became disoriented almost immediately. Some had made it up to the cliffs, while others perished and had fallen down back to the beaches where their fellow soldiers lay after embarking on the amphibious landing. What was supposed to be an easy and quick victory against the Ottomans had turned into a bloodbath. For the men observing from the cliff heads, all they could see was the thousands of dead who had lined the shores. The water colored with red with the soldiers' blood and the night silent. All that could be heard was the sounds of shovels digging holes for each side's dead. Disease and dysentery had run rampant with the poor nutrition of soldiers and lack of burial for the dead. As it had dragged on, the Allies made no gains and were subjected to futile attempts to gain ground. It broke into trench warfare similar to the Western Front, and after months of brutal and pointless fighting, the British command had called an end to the campaign. The evacuation order of troops had officially begun on December 8, 1915. It had gone on until every last troop was evacuated or moved to another front on January 9, 1916. Overall, during the campaign, there was a whopping 500,000 casualties in what was supposed to be an easy victory over the Ottomans. Although the campaign proved to be a widespread, if not horrendous failure, there was still triumph. We know what you may be thinking, this was a complete failure. How could there be any triumph? Well, from the fighting at Gallipoli, but more specifically the fighting that occurred at the now known Anzac Cove and objective areas, the legend of the Anzac was born on 25th of April 1915 and was reaffirmed in 8 months of fighting on Gallipoli. Although there was no military victory, the Australians displayed great courage, endurance, initiative, discipline, and mateship. Such qualities came to be seen as the Anzac spirit. Despite the rising odds and increasingly difficult terrain and poor planning, the Anzacs still fought valiantly. They had proven themselves to be worthy under the baptism of fire with their ferocious fighting and tenacity, to prove that despite their Commonwealth status, they were equal to any man on the battlefield. It was stated by the official Australian War Memorial that the 25th of April 1915 is a date etched in Australia's history. Its anniversary is commemorated across the country each year as Anzac Day. To many, this is Australia's most important national day. The first Anzac Day was celebrated on April 25th, 1916, to commemorate and celebrate the brave men returning from the campaign, as well as marching to the Westminster Abbey to be shipped off to the dreaded Western Front. It was observed by thousands in London, as well as cities in Australia. To this day, it is regarded as one of the most, if not important, day in Australian history, as it celebrates the many brave men and women who have fought, had, and will fight in the future conflicts. In the campaign, thousands of propagandas were posted, made depicting the brave and ferocious Anzacs calling out other men to duty. It had served its purpose perfectly, and soon after enlistment had skyrocketed as men rushed to enlist to join their brothers on the front lines. Enlistment had gone from a meager of 52,561,000 in 1914 all the way up to 165,912 in 1915 and 124,352 in 1916, which were the years the campaign had occurred from. This being 1915 through 16, we had listed as our triumph because despite the hell on earth this campaign proved to be, Anzac soldiers had fought courageously on and earned themselves a continuous Anzac legend, which lives on to this day. In our opinion, this Anzac legend was crucial in turning the tide of the war as men had flocked to enlist, and with their help and contagious spirit, the men had persevered through the hardships to come. Discipline the battles at the Somme, Verdun, and Passchendaele, the Anzacs have played humongous roles in their respective countries.
Soon enough, with the help of food scarcities, coupled with repeated defeats, a rapid surge of social discontent began to form. According to ABC Clio, due to the failure of the Gallipoli campaign, it resulted in Russia being cut off from easy access to its allies, and the ensuing economic chaos helping on the Russian Revolution of 1917. After this, Russia fell into political and economic turmoil, and had led the way for the Bolsheviks to form and rise, allowing for Russia to become a communistic country. Despite the triumphs previously described at Gallipoli, there remained one problem. The campaign was originally initiated to not just relieve pressure on the Western Front and knock out the Ottoman Empire out of the war, but to also regain control of the Dardanelles Straits, as they were a vital component in opening a supply line to Russia. Without Allied shipments, the already faltering Russian army and nation would spiral into destruction. As the war continued on, without the help from the Allies, the Russians suffered successive military disasters due to both poor leadership as well as the lack of supplies. To further explain, without the Allied nations, Russia had missed out on an easy economic and militaristic gain.
There were some of the best British divisions and regiments. I do think, however, that a lot of the mythology around it does get overdone. I mean, all nations produce courageous soldiers, so all nations value, friendship or mateship, as we call it. And there were other formations in the First World War, other Allied formations that had equal reputations to the Australians and New Zealanders and the Canadians. So the Dominions produced pretty good soldiers, but so did other countries as well. That deserves to be remembered, but it certainly got a little bit blown out of all proportion. You have to say more so in Australia than New Zealand, but it has happened in New Zealand as well.
Yeah,
I think that gets forgotten in that is the role of leadership and training. There's this myth that Australians and New Zealanders make natural soldiers. Well, they don't. The soldiers have to be trained and led, and led very, very well. And that's where the Australians and I think New Zealanders had the advantage in that their units had this cohesion. Their units tended to stay together and stay in the same brigade, so they actually knew their officers and leaders really well. And there was a premium on producing competent junior and senior military commanders, which they seemed to do really well.